Let's do it. Welcome, everybody. We are live. Welcome to the PureCars hosted webinar. My name is Jeff Ranalli. I'm the COO at PureCars. I've worked in the auto industry the entirety of my career. I know most of what I'm grateful for today to this industry and the incredible people within it. And it's for that reason that I am super excited to bring this group of thought leaders and friends to you today to share their experience and inspiring ideas about how to help dealers not only weather this crisis, but to come out of it stronger and more resilient than ever. So before we get started, I just want to say that for myself and on behalf of all of PureCars, our hearts go out to all of those affected by this health crisis. It's our sincere hope that all of you and your loved ones are safe and able to navigate these times with minimal loss. Also, to all of our dealers that are with us today, a sincere thank you for your ongoing efforts and your community service. You know, I haven't been in this industry for as long as I have. I'm certainly not surprised to see the inspiring stories from those of you who are serving the needs of the public and our first responders, but I am proud to be supporting your efforts and our great industry as a whole. So again, on behalf of PureCars, thank you. So a few logistics, then some intros, and we'll get rolling. For those of you attending, whether you're part of a dealership team, one of our OEM partners, fellow vendors, or other industry friends, we encourage you to use the questions function in your webinar control panel throughout the discussion. We've created space and some time in the conversation to respond to those questions. And whatever we can't get to live via email, whatever we can't get to live, we will follow up with via email after the discussion. So with that, let me introduce our guests. David Kain is joining us. David Kain is the president of Kain Automotive, an industry-leading provider of automotive internet sales, fixed ops, BDC, and digital marketing training and consulting, which he founded in 2003. Kain Automotive has been recognized as the #1 dealer-rated internet training company in the U.S. And, you know, with my personal experience with the Kain organization and David specifically, is that intro does not do him justice. I think for anyone that's had the pleasure of interacting with David, not only is it the smile that you see on the screen, but it's sincere, you know, love for the industry, love for what dealers bring to it, and always willing to do whatever it takes to help a dealer in need. So, David, thanks for the time and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You're so welcome.
Next, we've got Rick Ricart. Rick is president of Ricart Automotive Group in Columbus, Ohio. Ricart Ford was founded all the way back in July of 1953 by Rick's grandfather. And it was his grandfather's philosophy that to lead, you must work alongside the employees first. So Rick literally started out as a lot attendant, worked his way through the entire business, is leading the business today. You know, what we've noticed about Rick is his true passion for marketing, innovation, and mobility advancements, not to mention his incredible style with the hat and the mask that you'll see in a second. Currently, Ricart is employing over 500 folks in and around the Columbus market, sells approximately 15,000 new and used vehicles across 7 product lines, and is the #1 franchise used car operation in the U.S. for the past 3 years and running. Also quickly becoming known around the Columbus area as the C-Bus Bandit for reasons that are obvious. Rick, thank you so much for donating some of your time today, and we're thrilled to have you here.
Pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. All right. From the PureCars team, we've got Lauren Donalson. Lauren grew up in the auto industry working for her family's dealerships in sales, F&I, accounting, and fixed ops. She's one of our resident fixed operations specialists at PureCars, always helping us to figure out new and innovative ways to help dealers promote that business through the services that we provide. Currently, Lauren is leading the Northeast team of our account managers that, you know, have been working very, very closely with some of the dealers that have been the hardest hit by this crisis. And she's here today to share some kind of frontline strategies and examples of what seems to be working best. And last but not least, Jeremy Anspach. Jeremy's a founder and CEO of PureCars. His drive and passion for the automotive industry started at a very young age, and his whole career has been around helping dealers succeed by leveraging data, tech, and solving problems to help dealers sell more cars. Among his accolades are not only founding PureCars in 2007, successfully selling the business to Raycom Media in 2015, but then back in the CEO seat after once again leading the sale of PureCars to private equity. And I can tell you, having worked alongside Jeremy for the past 6.5 years, I can honestly say that no one is more passionate about finding innovative ways to help dealers succeed. So with that, thank you once again for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this conversation over to Jeremy.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. Before we begin and talk about actions that are being taken, many of them bold, really helping this industry and dealers succeed, my heart goes out to everyone here, everyone on this webinar. We've all been impacted by COVID, and I pray and hope that none of our families directly are impacted by the virus itself. That said, I've loved this business since a very, very young age. I'm a Detroit-born car guy through and through, and since kindergarten, always hoped to be a dealer and have taken every minute of my professional career to helping dealers succeed by founding PureCars 13 plus years ago. Automobiles are important, and in this country, it's weaved into our culture. It's a part of our transportation in a very, very big way. And being that this is the first pandemic of this scale I've ever lived through, and I think I can confidently say any of us have ever lived through, the automobile really becomes more powerful today than it ever has been. Mass transport, when you look at Google mobility reports and other things, as expected, is down in a very dramatic way. And it makes this automobile even more important. Secondly, when you look at the industry, the philanthropists in each community are generally driven by dealers. They're employing hundreds of people. And if there's one thing I can say about any dealer I've ever interacted with, they're resilient, they're super intelligent, and they're capable of getting through anything. And I know we as an industry will get through this. That said, I think let's jump into it. We've got really smart people here. Starting in March, mid to late March, we saw as the pandemic was starting to scale and really make change in our businesses, there was really two types of dealers. One became very paralyzed. They went into war mode by cutting everything back, massive furloughs, massive layoffs, massive budget reduction. And then there were dealers that were taking action that, looking in hindsight, successfully can say it's paid off. So with that, Rick, being a dealer, multiple generations, you guys have continued to grow generation after generation. What are some of the bold actions you guys have taken that are working?
Man, you made some strong statements there. The bold moves is what we had to really look at first. What happens if our community and our industry is impacted to the tune of 25 to 50% off, right? We didn't know exactly how long this was going to last and what was going on. So we had to make some bold moves, right? We had to ask some people that have worked for us a long time that weren't deemed necessities to just go home for a while. That word furlough seemed like such a bad word on day one, right? I was afraid to say it. It was another F word. And then I learned more about it and realized, no, actually, it's a mechanism in place for situations like these. And it's bold, but it's the right thing to do, and we have to do it. I'm all for hitting the brake when you need to hit the brakes. If you're in a race car and you're coming up on a turn, you're going to have to hit the brakes. You're going to fly off the turn. We're in that same scenario. But as soon as we get that car straight again and we can point it towards a target, we got to find those opportunities to hit the gas pedal again. We jumped right in the beginning with some of those PR community efforts, right? We got involved with some curbside concerts with the Can't Stop C Bus initiative, which isn't what broke the hat out. The hat was broke out because that kind of bandit mentality of like, I'm not going to flee, I'm not going to freeze, I'm here to fight it out. I'm here to fight it out with our guys, with our troops, keep the culture strong, and find those opportunities to hit the gas pedal as quick as we can. So that we can find opportunities to keep our head above water and get out of this thing and maybe get to the other side of it stronger than we were before, which is always a challenge that I'm up for.
It's great. David, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so no surprise that dealers are innovative and certainly you look at the generational circumstances at the Ricart organization, and for whatever reason, you and Lauren and Jeremy and Rick and I are here because we have had the good fortune of being part of these innovative times going back to 9/11 and 2008 and even before that. incredible to me how dealers figure out the new model, and certainly the ability to satisfy your team members, make them feel that they're healthy and safe and the dealership cares about them is paramount to the success and their ability to go out there and attend to the customer's needs. Because if you give that security to your team, and I'm certain that Rick and his team have spent a lot of time making sure all of his team members know, first and foremost, we want to make sure you're working in a healthy environment. And when we have customers come in, we want to protect them and we want to protect you. And that gives them the ability to provide the confidence to the consumer that we're going to work through this. And surprisingly, what we're seeing is consumers very resilient to this. If they're able to secure their income, if they're able to secure their job, if they're able to satisfy what their situation is, the next thing we tend to see out of consumers is they want to take advantage of a good deal. And my goodness, there are some really, really remarkable deals out there in the marketplace. Additionally, what we're seeing is the dealers who didn't just wholesale lay people off, but basically took a learned approach and said, where is this market going to go? Who are the real vital team members that need to benefit from making the adjustments? And what do we need to do for those who are unable to be essential, so to speak? How do we provide some income security for them, whether it's letting them use unemployment or putting them in a furloughed status at reduced cost? So we've seen a lot of structural innovation, not the least of which is critical to the foundational security of the dealership, but then stepping back up and saying, okay, we got the home fire set, now let's go back to the marketplace and let people know we can help them buy a car.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. At PureCars, shortly stepping back into the CEO seat from the executive chairman role, I was faced with this pandemic. And, some of the things we did were we took action very quickly. The first thing we did was we had everyone start working from home. We're very fortunate that in our business, everyone has a laptop. Why risk it? We shut down our Atlanta office and all other offices. The second thing we did was we realized every day at PureCars, the data helps lead us. And I can be the first person to tell you, we went into this pandemic having no clue how long is it going to last? What is it going to do to car dealers? Can car dealers recover from this? What do we do to help our dealers succeed through it? So the strategy we took was, let's double down on the data. We reactivated every developer, data scientist, performance engineering team, and machine learning group and said, any initiative you're working on that isn't going to help a dealer through this crisis, you need to pause. And let's put every hour we have into understanding COVID, the impact it's made. And I'm not suggesting we're trying to figure out a vaccine here. What I'm suggesting is we've been really able to look at the data and almost start charting it like a stock index, think the S&P. We've then been able to slice it by brand, by region, by model. And from here, been able to really see actions that we have suggested, actions that dealers have suggested, and bold moves manufacturers have done with incredible incentives to start seeing what's bouncing and what's creating additional headwind to almost take a crowdsource approach. Some other things we did was, being that we're staying at home, we wanted to repurpose even more horsepower within our human capital team. We deactivated all selling. So every single sales rep became a consultant to help our dealers and any dealer in their market get through this. We've been publishing COVID reports on PureCars.com. Anyone can access it, whether you're a competitor, an industry partner, a dealer that's current or not. And we've lastly taken our customer experience group, and this is the team that works with all of our dealers, and said, some of our peers have taken this frozen approach. We did monthly calls. We stick to monthly calls. We look at performance every other week, so we're going to keep looking at performance every week. We've flipped that on its head, saying we need to make bold moves. We need to do it very quickly. And with that, I wouldn't mind, Lauren, if you could share some of the things you're doing, directing the region you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, the group that comes to mind picking up on several things that you guys were just talking about, really was they benefited from OEM manufacturer incentives that are, as good as I can remember in recent memory. But they were also impacted probably the greatest that I can think of any group that we've worked with. So, Melissa, if you'll actually flip it to the next slide. Jeremy mentioned that we have really repurposed all of product and dev toward helping our dealers through this crisis. And what you see on the right-hand side, if you haven't seen it before, is really everybody at PureCars' new best friend. It's our PureCars COVID tracker, and there's an abundance of data in there that we are engaging with many times a day, day in, day out, and then acting upon with our dealers a couple times a week. So Drive Taylor Automotive Group is out in Western Pennsylvania. As we know, PA was affected, again, one of the heaviest impacts from this crisis. They're down, I think, close to 80% in sales volume over the last 30 days. So the Taylor AG had what I'm calling a vanilla ice moment. They stop, collaborate, listen, right? They paused all media spend. Everything came to a screeching halt. We quickly got with their executive team as well as their marketing team and took a look into the COVID tracker and found that, likely because of those manufacturer incentives, 0 for 84 available at Chevy, 0 for 75 available at Kia. Those are their primary brands working with us. That there was still a lot of engagement around these brands. It was just not panning out in sales due to probably consumer behavior. People are afraid to go out. Sales showrooms are closed, et cetera. So we took a breather, and then we deployed what I'm calling the 3 R's, right? So we reduced spend. That's appropriate in today's times. We reallocated spend, and then we reactivated the spend. But what we did in this reallocation is took a look at what are our goals. And if our goals are not store visits any longer, our goals may shift higher up the funnel. And so we redeployed their spend across a different set of channels. We weighted it heavier on social, pared back on some of the higher funnel keywords in search. They actually built out custom campaigns specific to online buying keywords as well. And what we saw from this, you can see in the upper left part of this screen, is actually, despite shrunken spend, we saw a higher output. And pleased to report, Jeremy mentioned the goal is to try to beat the S&P. This group has beaten it by 25 points since redeploying this strategy. And as luck would have it, PA just reopened online sales this week, and I would imagine that the folks at the Taylor AG are busy with activity that's been in the funnel for the last several weeks.
Lauren, thank you. As we dive a little bit more detailed into specific areas within a store, something we're seeing, and it's happening very, very rapidly with massive momentum, is new car incentives. When you think about it, the manufacturers have multiple levers to pull to help dealers kind of grease the wheel and make sure new cars start moving as people get out of their homes and start buying. And, they've got how much dealer cash are they going to put, how much incentives, 0 with deferred payments. Ford's been very aggressive in this area. They also have leasing arms that can offer incredible things. But one big landmine we all have on the dealer level right now is used cars. And this has been a focus area for PureCars since years prior to entering into the marketing automation platform side of the business. At the end of the day, I think used cars is an area that action needs to be taken very, very quickly, because there isn't going to be a manufacturer or an incentive to help you get out from underneath you if you do have water in your used cars. Rick, you guys have many accolades. You've been a dear friend for many years, as your family has been to me and to many here at PureCars. But one thing that I'm always blown away with by when I see your facility is the used car center. Your used car factory is a monster. It's, for those of you who've never been to Ricart, we're talking about it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a factory. It's mega amounts of cars out of one location with more sales reps than most dealers have employees. So with that, not to be sound the alarm here, but this landmine is even bigger for you. You know, that said, what action have you guys been taking here?
A lot like the 3 R's that Lauren was talking about when it comes to marketing, we kind of coined the phrase lean and clean. And we want to run as clean as we can. Clean in the literal sense of the facilities. Clean also leads to lean because with social distancing, I can't have 82 sales reps on that floor. In fact, the 40 sales reps that are there currently, about 20 of them were managers. And we kind of manned down a little bit and we cleaned it up. When it comes to inventory itself, it's the same rules. Number one is clean, meaning, have you been processing trades quickly? Is there stuff sitting on the lot that you were waiting to take to auction? Because if there was stuff waiting to go to auction, you're kind of in a corner with that stuff right now. You want to run it as clean as you can. You want to make sure that what you do have in inventory can be retailed, because retailing out of it is going to be one of the only true decent exit strategies for the next couple months, in my opinion. And hopefully it's only a couple months, because if the economic impact lasts farther than that, in the first week, when we first had to hit that brake pedal, when we knew we had to reduce, and we had to think about what does that realignment look like in inventory. The first week of the crisis, I was really thinking about, can we let our days supply swell? Can we let our inventory grow a little bit? If some units age, that'll be okay, because everyone's in this boat together, and eventually that market will normalize and we're going to get back to normal in used cars. If that doesn't happen in our market, with at least 2 months before the fourth quarter, it's going to leave us with an inventory flux going into the winter time that's going to be hard to recover from. So we want to stay lean and clean with the inventory. And going back to, I don't know who made this comment, I think it was you, Jeremy, but going back to our day-to-day activities, our reporting is better than ever. Our real-time daily reporting, the PureCars reports, we're looking at the market reports, then looking at how we're doing in those specific model lines. And all of those reports are critical right now, because we're assessing and realigning everything on a day-to-day basis, and we're looking at even more detail of where we're spending money, because now it's more lower shopper funnel also, the longer term keywords. If someone, because there's a lot of people out on the internet right now, they're at home, they don't have a lot to do, so they're kind of online playing and shopping and looking at, you wouldn't believe the VDP, spikes on expensive performance cars and all kind of the fun stuff that every teenage boy in the country is out there looking at. That doesn't mean you go stock your lot with GT500, Shelbys tomorrow. But look at who really is engaging on your VDP pages and what those units are. And we're strategically placing the ad dollars every day on those used units. And if it's a late model, the biggest thing that's going to impact the used car market, other than the economic recovery timeline, is the new car market. And where are these incentives and rebates headed? And if a stimulus package hit, or another big cash for clunkers, or some of these other rumblings that we're hearing come to fruition by the end of the summer, it's going to destroy the value of late model used cars. So one of the things that we've had to do is really be careful as we're sourcing 2018, 19s, and 20s, taking them on trade, et cetera, to make sure that we're in a position in our inventory to be strong on September 1st. And it's not so much the same mindset we've had in the past of, okay, it's April, we're buying for these May and June months and kind of throw the book out. We need to get cars on the lot. It's very strategic. It's very disciplined. We want to be as lean and as clean as possible in all of our inventories, and really anywhere that there's cash liquidity, because it all goes back to the word cash. And as a dealer, the first thing that comes to mind when these things hit are my people safe, and what does my cash position look like? And then once you get those two things aligned, then it's how can I start pushing the gas pedal to create some cash flow? Because we need revenue and cash flow. That's literally the oxygen that lets us get our head above water and breathe. So lean, clean, cash flow, and look out for the late model used cars.
So follow-up question on that. When you think about the landmine of used cars, the incentives that manufacturers are putting out, and potentially this next cash for clunkers, if it happens, it really seems to threaten pricing on late model vehicles. Are you guys getting more aggressive with lower priced used cars?
Yeah, and I think a lot of others in the market have picked up the same pattern. I just watched the car that I priced 2 weeks ago, put it about 90% price to market via Auto Metric. And then 10 days later, went to reprice it and it's at 96%. Well, why did that happen? Well, it's because everyone else in the market lowered their price also. So it's something you got to look at even more often. If you're repricing every 10 days, 2 weeks, some dealers a month, you really should have a disciplined process to reprice your used cars and look at where the market's at every 6-7 days with every used car. And especially the aged inventory that's already depreciated a little, it's depreciated more, and it's going to depreciate even more. You want to make sure you're on top of those in the late models even more.
Hey, Rick, one more question for you. I'm getting live questions. So if you see my head down, I'm checking on a different screen here what we're getting. Really interesting question. So many people in the country know that your commercial truck division is massive. And when you look at Amazon, near all-time stock price, I didn't check today, or I would say all-time stock price, there's definitely a lot of vendors that are using their vehicles more and more to service us while we're staying at home. What have you seen on the commercial vehicle side?
So we definitely saw, without even any marketing mechanisms, we saw an increase in that service business pick up immediately. The Amazon delivery vans and those types of services, the mobility and fleet services. Don't forget that DoorDash and Uber Eats are busier than ever also. In fact, I think I read the other day that Uber Eats is now more valuable than Uber, even though a year ago it was 800 to 1. Uber was more valuable. So you see that whole world shifting, and to get in front of them, but also the municipalities, whether it's the ambulance, school buses, police vehicles, they're all on the road more than they were before this. So there's opportunity there. It's important to reach out and keep those connections. Don't forget to do outbound marketing. Have general managers pick up a phone and call those companies and call those municipalities and tell them we are an essential business and we're here to repair and replace vehicles. And for us, the first responders in the frontline vehicles will come into our shop first. We want to make sure that our doctors, nurses, and healthcare are getting to hospitals, getting to work. We also want to make sure that our frontline emergency service response vehicles are 100% ready to go and available. And then comes the Amazon and all of the other traditional ones. So that business has picked up. And actually in the past few days, it's flattened off a little. I don't know if there was an initial kind of influx of everyone getting some service done, but we actually have just a meeting this morning about how we're going to start doing some more outbound business-to-business marketing and let them know that we are open, we are here. We started doing mobile service. We come to you has been our marketing message that we sprung to on day one. The second we went clean and we reduced staff and we knew we had to keep the masses away from the dealership, we went to a We Come to You campaign. And whether it's for a sales delivery through express checkout or a pickup and delivery for a service, we also reduced our fees to nothing on that. So as long as someone lives within 25 miles of us, we'll come pick up their vehicle, bring it here, even if just for an oil change, and then deliver it back to them afterwards. And we started doing that with the fleet and commercial on the same day. And they've been extremely receptive of an offer and a process that can help them, because it's about showing care and it's about being convenient. And what is the level of hospitality needed today to make someone feel safe, comfortable, and secure doing business with you? It's bigger than it's ever been. You literally have to go all out and create a character to get the message through that we have got to do more. And that's a message I've been pushing every day to every one of our departments. We can do more. We can be cleaner. We can sanitize more. We can do more. We can even increase our hospitality. We can follow up better. We can help provide information and be more transparent than ever. Literally any question you ask me, I'm going to answer. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. If a dealer out there is listening and they want to try that and it works, fantastic. If you think I'm crazy, don't do it. That's fine. But I'm going to share what I'm doing and what's working for us, because if it helps one dealer, then I've done my job. And we need to help each other. We're all in this together.
I appreciate the details, Rick. Hey, David, when we were prepping for this, one of the things I love about you is you have access to some of the smartest minds in the industry. And you mentioned you recently spoke to Dale Pollock around used car values and what's happening at the auctions, et cetera. Anything to add here on the used car topic?
Well, I think if you go back to what Rick was talking about, that studying the market, and if you had a cadence to where you checked every 10 days or 15 days, we really are in a position to where we can't let that get away from us. The cash position at the dealership is typically all tied up into used vehicles. And when you think in terms of what happened overnight, and this really hit home with me during my conversation with Dale, is if you go into your vAuto report and if you were right with your inventory by the 15th of March through the 15th of April, you probably lost 10 to 20% of value with some of those vehicles. And there's a lot of tiers that need to be considered. So if you look at the class of vehicle that people can get financed on, and you've got a good credit situation in your marketplace, you can probably retail out of those vehicles pretty easily. But if you're working in that lower to mid customer class and they've got job insecurity or income insecurity and they're unable to participate in that, those are the risk vehicles. I think consistent with what Rick was talking about, we need to look at all of our vehicles and think of a way to retail out. And I'd rather free up capital right away while the market is optimistic of a future, as opposed to if this thing lingers or we have any kind of a dip. I would like to take a more positive approach as a dealer and say, you've picked the perfect time to buy. I think we need to be very cautious with our marketing so that it doesn't make us look like we're at risk of going out of business, but at the same time, make it an opportunity. And going back to that clean and lean strategy that I love that Rick and I were talking about, if we present it properly to the consumer, consumers are opportunists and they're going to want to take advantage of that. And if we can afford them an opportunity to trade up or trade into a more secure vehicle at a time like this, I think that is a good message for the market.
David, I couldn't agree more. Lauren, I'd love to see if you have anything to add on some of the bold actions you've taken with the team and if you're open to sharing some of the success.
Sure. Yeah. So there's one that I was furiously scribbling, Rick, as you were talking, because every single point you made really aligns with the example that I had in mind. Melissa, actually, if you'll flip to 2 slides forward, there's a dealer outside of LA, Valley High Kia, that I'd like to touch on. So yeah, we've hammered the point home that used cars are top of mind for dealers right now. And just to kind of like go through the same cadence of how we're tackling each dealer's individual scenario, we start with our data tracker, our COVID tracker. And what you'll see on the left side of the screen here, we've filtered this down all the way to this dealer's metro, looking through used car engagement. What's hot? Where's the demand? The very first used Kia that we found it's the only Kia that cracked the top 50 was at 46. It's the Sorento. You're not going to rip through your inventory when there's nobody interested in it, right? So we have, that leads us to the strategy needs to be, let's develop and generate some demand. So we pivoted, right? And what was great about working with this group is that we also were, and David touched on this as well, what's important to the customer. We really have an opportunity with this crisis to actually revolutionize the industry and solidify the car dealer as someone who can be trusted, who's watching out for the consumer, who cares about the consumer, right? And so there's a few things that if you can see in the ad copy where this dealer took care of what Rick touched on. Are my people safe? As well as is the consumer safe? So they talked about consumer safety. And then cash position, they called out that their vehicles were recently reduced pricing. And one thing that I would mention is that you're likely dealers are repricing their vehicles on a rapid cadence. If it used to be weekly, now it's every day. You need to get that information in front of the customers who are interested in that vehicle, because that may be the thing that gets them over the 1 yard line into the end zone. And what's great about our dynamic ads, both in social as well as in display, is it integrates with the price inventory fee populate. If this vehicle was recently reduced $250, that's going to be in your ad copy, serving to the folks that have already looked at that vehicle. So that's kind of tying a loose end after you've repriced your vehicles, making sure that consumers who are interested see it. As far as this particular dealer, I would call the campaign a success, right? We wanted to generate some demand. In the first weekend that the campaign was live, 8 used cars were sold for $24K in gross profit, and their overall sales were increased 40% week over week. So that's just one of many examples that we could share, but rooted in data, and again, looking at what's in it for the consumer is the way to go with it.
Lauren, great feedback. You know what I'll add is since we're talking about data here, Rick said something that I really liked. It's like a day feels like a week feels like a month. And I think with data, we've noticed there's a frequency now where everything is moving much quicker. You know, from our stance, we've wanted to make sense of the data, as I mentioned earlier, by understanding what's happening by media channel. How is it changing? How can we buy into the media for more or less? What's working, what's not? Because this is uncharted times, and what worked before the pandemic is working in some cases differently now. We saw a huge shift from search to social. Social's performing exceptionally well, and it's being bought for a lot less expensive than it was pre-pandemic, and is doing good things, Lauren, like you mentioned. You know, Rick, you're leading a big business here, and you turn more used cars in a weekend than most dealers turn in a month. When you think about this pandemic, how things are moving so quickly, what type of data are you looking at? Has it changed? And is the frequency of that coming to you quicker, slower? What are you doing differently right now, if anything?
You know, the frequency is definitely coming quicker from a data standpoint. You know, we're looking really at a lot of our comparing things where we're at in April 2019, where we're at, you know, we could even compare things to March in this market up until about the 15th, 16th, 17th. So we're looking at it day to day, and not just by date. Remember, like we've last year, the month of April, weekends fell on different calendar days. So, you know, it may come off a weekend and look like you've done better than you really have. You got to let that kind of cycle through. So we're looking, you know, like I say, day to day and date to date, and kind of measuring everything up against each other, and then comparing with a lot of the metrics that you're providing. But at the same time, trying to be clean with everything means not wasting money, right? Any of the experimental advertising, any things that we were kind of putting money at to see if it could work, or some of the more mid-tier funnel items that were, yeah, they're kind of branding, but they have some good messages. Unless someone is in the market to buy a car today, I think it's falling on deaf ears. And not only deaf, but you sound tone deaf in the market, because there's dealers in our market that are already back to just screaming about 0 for 84, and they're on television and they look like there was no pandemic that happened. And it's like that's going to have a negative long-term reaction. You want to be very sensitive to the feeling of the overall environment and make sure that the messaging you have is directly in tune. And if for some reason it's not to someone at the bottom of the shopping funnel that you know is looking for a specific Kia Sorento or a like vehicle to try to move that late model used Sorento from the High Valley example below, then kill it, cut it, and keep it as bottom funnel as you can. And if it is top funnel, nobody cares if you're open 5, 6, 7 days a week. Nobody cares if you've got an award or accolade last year. They care about what you're doing to help your community, to make your customers and their employees, you know, customers and employees and families feel safe. And I think that that's what will help come out with a better positive awareness from the brand image marketing. Everything else, any dollar that we spend is directly on someone online who we know has put their hand up, or they've engaged, or they've been on our site long enough, or whatever metric has told them. And I completely agree. Social retargeting, behavioral targeting, anything that believe that they're in the market and they've been doing enough research, then by all means, 12 touch points. Remind them that you are open and you want to earn their business, and you're willing to do it however they want to do business. It's a world of options. We've been doing a lot of express deliveries, and by that term, a lot of people think we're delivering cars to people's houses. I'll give you a great example. Over this past weekend, one of our divisions sold approximately 100 cars. Actually, it was 86. Only 4 of them were delivered to the home. The other 82 were express appointments where they opted to come to the dealership because we provided them and showed them, hey, do you want to come to our pristine environment? There's the plastic, you know, the plexiglass dividers up in front of the operator if you have to go up and receive money. There's all the X's every 6 feet apart. And to do a 45-minute expedited delivery also takes great interaction with the consumer before they arrive. So that consumer experience, if you set it up correctly and you truly share all the information needed and negotiate before the guest arrives, it turns into this wonderful less than 45-minute, still celebrating taking delivery of a vehicle process that it seems quiet. It's almost eerie here. You talk about the mega mall and this factory and these thousands of cars. It's very quiet. We're quietly taking care of our customers, and they're coming in, they're taking delivery and leaving, and you don't really even feel it happening. There's parts of it that are kind of nice.
Yeah, I think you set this well up into the next segment being around online retailing and e-commerce. I'll kick it off by saying things like this, any crisis, there's always change coming out of it. And one thing that the industry predicts will happen fast and furious is online retailing / e-commerce. It's going to accelerate. There's things where my wife and I, for example, we would always go out to dinner if we're going to go on a date night. Now we're realizing it's actually kind of nice getting a nice meal and bringing it back home. There's going to be behavioral shifts, and there's been a lot of people predicting that online retailing and e-commerce will happen. So I want to talk more about it. David, when you think about the training that you're doing, and when we talked yesterday about how really transparency is the hallmark towards trust, what's your view on where the industry is evolving, or is it evolving from an e-commerce perspective?
Well, I think the evolution became a revolution a couple of weeks ago when everybody rushed to the digital retailing platforms and said, oh my God, put it on my website. And they went from, the platforms went from a 3-day or a 4-day launch to where they were doing hour-long launches. So what I feel is going to happen is the ones who had been doing it for a long time, like Ricart since 2017, really robust digital retailing strategy, versus those that did it since the 17th of last month, are now in a position to where you're gonna throw, I guess, probably ill-prepared team members out there to try to close a deal. And digital retailing to me is not closing a deal. Digital retailing is this opportunity to align with the customer. I remember a long time ago, my dad taught me a really valuable strategy, which was when you go to present the numbers, walk around to the side of the desk with the customer and kneel down next to them and put the paperwork up there and be a servant to them. It was crazy how effective that was. So now with digital retailing, if I can do a shared screen like this with a customer, and I can do a guided approach as we walk through the numbers, because one of the things that we've got to be aware of is customers are still going to have payoffs. Customers are still going to be nervous about budgeting what the payment is. And when you get down to the trade-in or the payments and they're self-servicing online, they're going to blow up. And so I'd rather not send them a link and say, hey, go sell yourself a car. I'd rather say, I'm going to send you a link while we're on the phone and we're going to go through this together. I'm also going to send you a Zoom meeting. You go to church on Zoom, you go to meetings on Zoom, you hang out with your family on Zoom. Now let's talk about looking at the car. So I can go through the Ricart website. I can, show blemishes on cars. I can show tire tread. I can get into all the details, and I can show them how this will work. And I can still apply some good faith to the consumer and make them feel as though I care about them. So I think the leaders in digital retailing will sustain this after the fact. I think one of the things that will advantage them is they will have learned that, yes, most people want to come to the dealership, and yes, most people want to see everything before they get there. But that's where the real strength is going to come after this, as opposed to the guys that are going to say, phew, thank God that's over. We can get back to normal. Scrap that digital retailing tool, get that off the side, off the website, and let's go back to the bad old days. I think this is going to be a paramount change in our industry, and I look forward to what it's going to bring.
I'll share this funny tidbit. I started this business thinking that the industry needed to be more transparent, and that used vehicles, there was a missing component that value was more than just price. And this was also the time Dale Pollock was just ramping up with Viato. And my view was always there is more to a used vehicle than price, because if there's not, I'm going to go be a used car dealer and just buy rental cars with no equipment and be the lowest in the market in price. Today, we have more and more people asking about our value report, which is all I offered a decade ago, because it helps this digital retailing where it may not be an Amazon experience. It's about building trust with transparency. And David, I agree with all your points. You know, Lauren, you grew up in the business. Your dad's a dealer in Texas. What are you seeing on the digital retailing piece? And is there any bold actions that are happening right now that you could share to dealers?
The one thing that I will add is I am from a tiny town in Southeast Texas of about 6,000 people. And kudos to my cousin, who was one of those who pivoted quickly and got digital retailing going at our Toyota store as soon as, you know, the stuff hit the fan. And what I can add here is if folks in a very rural community with more of a traditional buyer, if digital retailing works there, there's an appetite for it everywhere. And so the way that I look at this is that this, if we're trying to look at the glass half full, it's really pulled our industry forward to where we probably should have been for years. It's where the customer wants us to be. And as David was mentioning, it's certainly helping us be more transparent and meeting the customer on their terms rather than having them come to us. On the complete flip side of Silsby Toyota, Audi Queens is probably the one dealer that I would note is really taking the express business to another level. They actually flip every single customer who interacts with inventory on their site. They're flipped over to the express site where they can begin to work their deal or take a look at numbers and stuff like that. And they've really bought in, gone all in there. So they're another good example that I can think of. But my takeaway is it would be a shame if we went through this and nothing changed. I think this represents a huge opportunity for us to take a huge leap forward as dealers and meet the customer on their terms.
Yeah, it's great comments. You know, when you look at other industries, sometimes I feel like they're a lot less complex. Like think food and bev. You see restaurants that just say, COVID is here, I've been asked to close, we're closed. They let everyone go or they furlough their staff and they're closed. And every day they're closed, their brand is becoming less relevant, in my opinion. And then you see the leaders in food and bev that never did carry out before, but as Rick has said, they're doing it so clean, so efficient. The e-commerce experience is phenomenal. The way you pick up your food, you feel safe, it's efficient, it's fast, they're gaining. We're seeing this across the industry right now. We're seeing that when you think about bold action, there's really been three key paths. One is frozen, do nothing, or cut everything back and hide. One is assume nothing is really happening. Like that goes back to dealers that are showing the same traditional ad messaging that they did pre-pandemic with an updated offer, or dealers that haven't adjusted their digital strategy in a big way. And then there's dealers that we're hopeful that you guys that are listening to this pick up on, that are taking action and beating the benchmark. And look, it's been gloomy. We're dealing with stay-at-home orders where many states people are staying home, and that is going to impact sales. But dealers are essential, and really good things are happening here. I know we have 9 more minutes to stay on track. We've had a tremendous amount of questions that are coming in here. Jeff, do you want to take over and go through some of these questions?
Hey, catching me off guard there, Jeremy.
Sorry, you're good.
Good, thanks everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? You know, feedback before was a little echoey.
We can hear you fine.
Great. So, you know, back to used cars seems to be a really hot topic right now, I guess. You know, significant problem that we're all facing. And maybe Rick, if you could comment, David, love to hear your thoughts as well. Any thoughts about, or is it impacting you, the rental car industry, dumping massive amounts of inventory, more or less liquidating in the marketplace. Have you seen that impact your market, Rick?
Sure. I've watched two rental car companies get on the front edge of this thing and take a bunch of cars to auction right in the middle of March. They sold them for about 88 to 90% of what, let's use MMR as kind of a common number. Some of the other rental car companies have decided to hold on to some of their inventory, thinking they're going to weather the storm and wait and see. When they do get a chance to dump the rental cars into the market, they should obviously sell for less than a one-owner franchise car should, or you know what I mean, like a one-owner non-rental car. So no, they haven't made a big impact, but I think like dealers, they're looking at their inventory the same way. When is that optimum? What time makes the most sense to dump them? And I think it was either Vroom or CarMax, one of those, Vroom or Carvana, about 2 weeks ago, put a bunch of cars on OVE, and they wanted to see what they could get for them. So they started the bids at 50%, and they brought almost 90. And so part of the lesson is dealers are out there looking for deals. They're looking to buy cars. So if you do need to take cars to the auction, start a little lower, and let it kind of build up some, because not many people are just wanting to hit buy now, even if something is 90 to 95% of what the auction says it should have sold for a month ago, right? There's dealers that are looking for deals. They're looking to buy things. They're looking to buy them at 80, 85, maybe 90% if it's the right car. And I wouldn't worry about rental cars as much. Everybody's worried about rental cars flooding a market that has 80 million transactions in it a year. So 100,000 rental cars here, 50,000 off-lease cars here, they don't truly affect the entire used car market as dramatically as some experts want us to believe. If there's 2 million used cars to hit the market, that's a little bigger drop in the bucket.
What I hear you saying is kind of thematic throughout the conversation, and it's pay attention to the data, control what you can control, right? Adjust accordingly.
Be a student. It's all about being educated. It's all about just seeking knowledge in every piece of data you can every day.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for that. And David, if you care to comment on that, please do. But we also had another question come in directed for you, and it was: are there any specific changes that you feel a BDC department needs to be making to better align with current situation?
Yeah, I think we need to give field promotions to our BDC team members and equip them with what it takes to be transparent with the customer. It always annoys me when you go into a dealership and you're like, well, we just want the BDC to get people in the door. And that is such a demotion to the quality of the individual that's out there. If you follow these people home, they are leading organizations outside of work. They're teaching their kids while they're holding a full-time job. This is a really active environment of really intelligent people. And one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that we give them the tools and the training necessary to where they can be extremely effective in helping the customer as they work through the strategy. So a lot of stores are recognizing the fact that sales managers are taking leads for the first time in years. They're handling inbound phone calls. And what they're finding is sales managers aren't that good on the phone. They're good at structuring deals. So if we could actually take these communication professionals through the BDC and teach them more about the deal, customers love that strategy of working there. And then we can always bring in the manager if we need to do a live TO or things of that nature. We've even got dealerships that are doing three-way conferences where the manager is brought into a screen share and the conversation takes the necessary step to involve the manager. But if we can strengthen the core talents of our BDC team, I think this is a wonderful time to experiment with that.
Awesome. Yeah, great input. Thank you. So Rick, I'll throw this one over to you. I think I know what your answer will be, but we'll see. Because I think this is, representative of a real challenge that, your dealer peers are going to be facing. So question was, hey, we're seeing a huge problem nationwide. Must be a group with getting staff to come back after being furloughed, what's your team seeing or hearing from staff as you may be wanting to hire people back, either part-time, full-time, especially with unemployment being high, concerns around the virus and whatnot? So I guess maybe the question is that even a challenge that you're facing right now, or how are you thinking about it?
No, I haven't faced that challenge yet. Any furloughed employees that we've reactivated have already been standing out at the front gate waiting to run back in. We currently before the pandemic, we had almost 600 employees, and 3 people total have elected to volunteer to furlough because of scare of the virus. They have, relatives or whatever that maybe have autoimmune disorder or something that could compromise themselves. So those that have higher risk, absolutely, we're happy to let them take a furlough in those things. Those that we have called, and I'm really lucky. We have a lot of long-term great employees that have been with us a long time. Our team is special. Our team is phenomenal. Even those that are here there's been a lot of what we call man down of sales directors that are in sales manager roles. The sales managers are the BDC here. The level of engagement, the percent of internet leads that we're turning into sales has doubled the past 3 weeks because of that quality, because of the digital retailing process, because of the AutoFi touch points, because of all of those actions that they're taking and the way that they're communicating. And it goes to providing all that information up front, right on the BDP page, being completely transparent, as David keeps reiterating. Be completely transparent, overload of accurate information. They're still consumers, and we are still car dealers. They don't feel freely to reach out to us unless we have what they're looking for. They know what kind of experience they're going to have. They know what the process is. They know how good the deal is. They know the reputation of the dealership. Then they're going to engage us. They've already told us in today's environment, if they're sending a lead, if they're calling in, if they're interested, they are a buyer. They're not shopping. They're buyers. And treat them as such. Pretend they're sitting in the finance office and provide them that transparent information and assume the sale and take their hand and lead them down the path and show them exactly what it takes to take delivery. And they will be ecstatic and thank you and give you rave reviews even during this type of a crisis. And necessity is the mother of all invention. And this necessity of digital retailing that we've been trying to market for 2 years now, I think I just calculated how much we've been spending in electronic media to market our express option and tool, which was new to the market. Now it's finally getting some traction because it's a necessity, and every dealer is jumping in that pool and quickly having to become experts. So the education right now is heightened. The awareness is there. The consumers are expecting it, and it's time for dealers to step up, make these bold moves, and do what we do best, which is be entrepreneurs and leaders in this country. And let's not let this put us under the grave.
Yes, very well said. Couldn't agree more. So listen, guys, I want to be respectful of the scheduled time for all of our guests, all of our attendees. I want to thank you sincerely and dearly for your time and the donation of your strategies. The kind of open attitude that you've all expressed and continue to express, I think, is one of the key things that I love about our industry and what really is going to help us all get through this stronger than ever. So thank you. Thanks for everyone who participated, for the questions. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that PureCars puts out a report that tries to take a distillation of these very topics that we've been talking about. You can find it on our website on our COVID-19 response page. Please do so. And with that, Lauren, thank you. Always phenomenal to hear your kind of distillation of those frontline strategies. You're awesome at what you do, and I appreciate you joining us today. And Jeremy, do you want to close us out?
Sure. I want to first off say thank you to everyone who attended this today, and special thanks to David, Rick, Lauren, and Jeff. If there's definitely one thing that I can't say enough, and I'm going to be on repeat here, is don't be frozen. You gotta take action. And it's almost like what Winston Churchill today said, take action today. And it was those red stickers. You got to take action. And that action starts with vendors like ourselves, where the flow of data is in near real time. It's not on a weekly call or a monthly call. you got to make bold moves. And the dealers who have been making these bold moves are seeing great success. As I mentioned earlier, for anyone on this webinar that is not a current PureCars customer, that is totally okay. And just know that all of our sales team has been reactivated to just helping every dealer in their market, going through the reporting, pulling up the internal reports to show you by brand what your exact market is doing, et cetera. We're here to help, and I'm confident we as an industry will get through this. Every other thing that's happening